Right or wrong, I've spent a whole lot of time trying to figure out the limits of this Navigator, traction limits, cornering limits, and knee limits, and this Lincoln has stopped me at every single attempt, not because it can't, but because it won't let me, and that decision tells you everything you need to know about who this SUV is for. What's it like? Buckle up, my friends. Let's go for a drive. I'm your host, Brian Max, racer, lover of driving fast, fun things. And on this channel, you get reviews for drivers from drivers. And this is the 2025 Lincoln Navigator L. And it's sparked more debate in my head than anything else I've driven all year. And the thing is, it's spectacularly good at things I don't value. So I've had to separate what I want from what buyers actually need. And by the end of this episode, you'll understand who exactly this six-figure luxury SUV is for and whether that's you. And before we get into what it's like to drive, let's have a look at it in a little more depth. For 2025, this Navigator represents Lincoln's commitment to luxury isolation over driving engagement, much more pronounced than the previous generation. The electronic systems run deeper, suspension tuning is softer, target buyer, families, and execs prioritizing comfort and tech over driving dynamics. It's still body-on-frame construction, and it's powered by a 3.5-liter V6 with two turbos, makes 440 horsepower at 5,850 RPM and 510 pounds of torque at 3,000 RPM. Transmission's a 10-speed automatic. It is four-wheel drive. Steering's electrically assisted. Front suspension is a short and long arm design. Rear is multi-link, does have adaptive dampers, and uses coil springs, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Brakes are two-piston front calipers, single piston at the rear. Wheels and tires run from 22s to 24s. This one's fitted with the 22s. Towing capacity is 8,700 pounds with the heavy-duty towing package. Curb weight is a little over 6,000 pounds, and we do have to talk about the tech on board, but what I love on board are those seats, and that's because they remind me of a good old American Eames lounger. And one of the new things on board is the Lincoln Rejuvenate multi-sensory wellness system. Of course, the 48-inch panoramic display dominates the interior. That is called the Lincoln Digital Experience, and it has Google built in. The Revel sound system is just brilliant, and I wish it could translate in this medium because it is magic to my ears. This split tailgate design is standard for 2025. I really dig that, and it works for me. With the black label, however, there's one thing I'd love to experience, and that is the 24-way perfect position front seats, and I can't wait to drive the black label. Did you know that 80% of you are not subscribed? Yes, it's true. 80% of you are not subscribed. I checked the data. So if you like the content on this channel, do me a solid, hit that subscribe button, make sure you like this, and if you want to support the channel, please hit up our merch store. Links here, links below. Lots of great stuff for driving enthusiasts like us, including our very popular line of Save the Manuals merch. Now back to your regularly scheduled episode. Here behind the wheel, I'm quite happy because the fundamentals are so good, and that starts with these seats. As I mentioned, they're not just aesthetically pleasing, but they're incredibly comfortable and supportive. Of course, there's a massaging function. They're heated, they're cooled. Lots of adjustment in the seat as well. The pedals are adjustable here. Now, the steering column, mirrors, pedal adjustments are all controlled through the steering wheel, which is a completely different thing, part of the minimalist or digitized aesthetic that Lincoln is going for. But once you're here and got everything set up, it is a spectacular place to be. It is, however, dominated by 48 inches of screen across the dashboard. It shows you everything from Google Maps to your Spotify playlist to 4 years of premium connectivity you'll forget to cancel. It may very well be the world's most expensive distraction from what this chassis is doing underneath you. On the other hand, it's very clear, very legible in all kinds of lighting conditions, and that they've done right. With the infotainment system, well, a lot of controls have migrated into the screen. Climate controls, for example. The seat memory function is another one. Yes, you can change the adjustment adjustment with the adjusters on the side of the seat, but a lot of the controls are in the system. Thankfully, it's fast, it's responsive, and connectivity is a breeze. And on shoots like this where I'm controlling all kinds of different devices with my phone, it has no trouble disconnecting and then reconnecting quickly. So connectivity is definitely a highlight. Now about the elephant in the showroom, this steering wheel. Now, they've given it a flat bottom, which is something you'd find in hot hatches or some kind of sports cars, but they've also given it a flat top. It seems to be a smaller diameter, and where I live in a big busy city, I'm always making tight turns, or when it comes to parking this thing, the fact that it's oval shaped remains a little strange. When you're on the move like we are here, it encourages you to have your hands at 9 and 3, and these haptic controls are interesting to say the least. They do control the adaptive cruise, or Blue Cruise in this instance, and those are displayed on the screen right in front of me, as well as the audio controls. So when I touch the control on the steering wheel, it is displayed here, and I can adjust the volume or track, and then, of course, like I mentioned earlier, I can adjust the steering wheel position, as well as the pedals and the mirrors from this controller right here on the steering wheel. And when you're stopped, you press this Rejuvenate button, and this Lincoln becomes a spa on wheels. Why Lincoln thinks you need to de-stress in their big 3-row SUV, I don't know. Your seat reclines, warms up, and massages you while ambient lighting and botanical scents fill the cabin. It's remarkably soothing, and I don't understand it. Maybe it's one of those things they did it because they could. It's kind of like an Italian restaurant offering Tums with every meal. Now, in terms of visibility, of course, you're seated high off the road with tall glass all around. Thankfully, large outboard mirrors. There is no camera mirror here, by the way, which would have been helpful last night when I was being followed by somebody who doesn't understand that the blue light on their dashboard means they have their high beams on. But nonetheless, visibility is excellent. Blind spots really aren't a thing. If you adjust your mirrors properly, blind spots aren't real. One of the things Lincoln has done is taken advantage of the outboard cameras, so that when you're changing lanes, you put the turn signal on, assuming you use your turn signals, and what happens is the outboard camera is displaying the image in your blind spot. It's a nice feature to have, certainly very useful in the city, in a busy city where I live, where there could be anything sneaking up on you in any direction. In terms of spaciousness, that's what this Navigator L is all about. Lots of room here in the front row for you and your passenger. In the second row, tons of room. There's a decent amount of space in that third row as well, but under the hatch, because this is the longer wheelbase, there's an incredible amount of cargo carrying capacity underneath that hatch, and that split folding gate is absolutely brilliant in terms of it being a workspace on a day like this for me, where I'm shooting this episode, or just carrying around all your stuff. There's so much room in here. There are 14 USB ports inside this cabin. I counted, and I might have 6 devices total. I think Lincoln correctly identified that I'm not the target demographic for family functionality, but they've provided enough ports for me to run a small YouTube production company from the third row, which I'm seriously considering. For context, the Escalade has just 38 inches of curved display, while this Lincoln has 48 inches. That's 10 more inches of screen, which in luxury SUV terms is the difference between impressive and are we sure this is legal? And both will show you live Google Maps, but neither will help you find your life's meaning. Now, in terms of acceleration, and this is no performance SUV, mind you, but there is an abundance of power and torque here. It'll get you to 60 miles an hour from a stop in the low to mid 5-second range. Top speeds limited to about 115 miles an hour. And Lincoln's given this 440 horsepower, 510 pounds of torque, all routed through a 10-speed automatic, and gets to the ground through all 4 wheels. On paper, that's enough to move 6,000 pounds with some authority. In practice, Lincoln's calibrated approximately 73% of any aggression out of the system. It's like hiring Mike Tyson to be your therapist. capable of extreme violence, but contractually obligated to be gentle. 510 pounds of torque at 3,000 RPM is exactly what you need until you realize all the systems on board have agreed that you're not responsible enough to access 100% of it all the time. Floor the throttle and you get measured, progressive, completely drama-free acceleration. It's like ordering a shot of espresso but getting decaf because the barista thinks you can't handle caffeine. The 10-speed automatic, technically brilliant because those ratios are closely packed together, which means they should work for spirited driving as well as fuel economy. In the regular drive mode, it might use maybe 5 of them, skips gears like a kid avoiding cracks in the sidewalk, and then in Excite mode, it wakes up slightly but still won't hold third gear when you want third gear. It's like a transmission with trust issues, except when I'm behind the wheel, I'm the reason it doesn't trust me. For the last week, I've been trying to chirp the tires at every opportunity. I guess that passes for work in my profession. The traction control has defeated every attempt with the kind of efficiency that suggests Lincoln anticipated exactly this behavior from exactly this type of reviewer. And that's the thing, it'll accelerate from 0 to 60 in well under 6 seconds, and for 6,000 pounds, that's very impressive. The problem isn't the speed, it's the sensation. Lincoln has engineered out every bit of drama. No tire spin, no exhaust theatrics. It accelerates like a freight elevator. Capable, smooth, and maybe as exciting as filing taxes electronically. According to Lincoln, the twin-turbo V6 is designed to provide minimal lag across the entire rev range. In practice, there's actually 0 lag because the turbos are always spooled and the throttle mapping is so progressive you'll never detect the transition. It's smooth, it's seamless, and completely devoid of any excitement. Peak horsepower is delivered at 5,850 RPM, which in my experience is something you're never going to see because in Excite mode, it seems to shift just shy of that peak power RPM. In the more benign drive modes, it's shifting shorter than that. It's like buying an amp for your guitar that goes to 11 but having the volume knob stop at 9. The capability for maximum power is there, but it's like Lincoln doesn't trust you with it. Thankfully, you can accelerate on that abundance of torque. About 19% of you are subscribed, which means 81% of you are experiencing the same thing like when I step on the accelerator of this Navigator, which is intervention. The algorithm reads your viewing habits about 500 times a second and decides you don't need to see this channel. Subscribe to override that decision because then you can assert some preference. The button's down there. The algorithm's watching. When it comes to dynamics, there are 7 systems that stand between your inputs and the Navigator's response. Because this is a channel for drivers, let's attack some corners, and this is interesting. Thankfully, we've got great braking. Turn-in response is direct, if a bit slow, and yeah, we've got a lot of body roll, a little bit of complaint from these tires, and overall, this is a 3-row SUV that does not want to be hustled through corners. The torque of the twin-turbo V6 is lovely, getting up to speed, no trouble at all. Again, love the brakes. Power is excellent. This corner is tough. Off camber on exit, but this suspension prioritizes comfort well before outright handling, that's for sure. Lots of lean here, and it just does not want to pick up the throttle on corner exit. Performance SUV, definitely not. Comfort and luxurious SUV, well, this is what the Navigator is all about. There are 7 systems that stand between your inputs and how this Navigator responds. Traction control, stability control, curve control, torque vectoring, ABS, throttle mapping, and the transmission programming. They activate in a sequence that's like a very expensive game of Simon Says. The result is a vehicle that is spectacularly competent up to about 7/10, but has decided you can't access the remaining 3. It's like it's hired a team of lawyers to protect you from yourself. I was really hoping to get a little bit of feedback through this steering wheel. I'd like to know what's going on at those front contact patches, but The Navigator's not that kind of vehicle. Turn the wheel and it responds accurately, but silently, like texting someone who only replies with K. The system prioritizes consistent responsiveness over communication, which is great for confidence and terrible for connection, which makes you a little bit of a passenger in the decision-making process. And I keep talking about turn-in response like this Navigator is supposed to turn quick laps around Laguna Seca. It's actually supposed to ferry executives to airports and children to soccer practice. But in this case, I'm the problem because Lincoln built exactly what they intended. I'm just judging it by criteria that nobody asked for. On the other hand, the brake pedal is excellent. Control is precise, there's a decent amount of feel, and brakes are very, very strong to slow down this 6,000-pound SUV. But ask this Navigator to trail brake into a corner and then the systems intervene and then it becomes a conversation with someone who's wearing sunglasses. You're having the conversation, but you can't exactly see their eyes. There are 7 dynamic safety systems here, maybe 4 of which I can't even pronounce, and they form a defensive perimeter around this Navigator like the Secret Service does around a president. It's like your inputs are screened, some of them get denied, and all of them are monitored. To be fair, I've been complaining way too much about a lack of dynamic feedback in a luxury 3-row SUV, which is kind of like complaining about sheet thread count at a Holiday Inn. The thing is, the customer doesn't care about that, and maybe I care a little too much, and perhaps this is the hill I've chosen to die on. And try to do anything exciting in any corner, and this Navigator gives you a patronizing pat on the head, but it's not incompetence. This is intentional, expensive, sophisticated engineering. Lincoln spent millions developing systems that keep you in the narrow corridor of acceptable behavior. And for most buyers, most of the time, that's exactly right. Because when you've got 6,000 pounds, 8 passengers, and 6 figures worth of crystal white metallic SUV, maybe you don't want to find the limits. Maybe you want systems that find them first and make sure you never get there. And if you're somebody who wants some feedback from the chassis, wants the throttle to pick up aggressively when you're exiting a corner, Lincoln has politely told you to shop elsewhere. How do you spec yours? Well, I have some thoughts. What you are looking at is a 2025 Lincoln Navigator L in crystal white metallic paint with the black onyx interior. Base price in the US is $104,980. Add a couple little options, including the second-row tailored seats with the console for $4,000 and the tow package, and you get an as-tested price of $110,555. In Canada, base price is $129,000. Add those second-row tailored seats with the console and the tow package, and you get an as-tested price of $135,175, and these prices are before freight, taxes, fees, etc. In terms of speccing yours, the one you see in the television ads is the black label, and that adds $15,000 to the price of your Navigator for some upgraded leather, some unique trim, and a sense of superiority over regular Navigator owners. Yes, that's $15,000 for materials and feelings. The materials are exceptional, the feelings are temporary, choose accordingly, but here's the question. Do you want to spend 6-figure money on an SUV that won't let you explore 6-figure performance? It's like buying a Rolex that only shows you the hour hand. Beautiful, expensive, deliberately limited. The merch store has tees, hoodies, hats, and a sticker that says 510 pounds of decorative torque. Purchase is optional, and so is this channel's continued existence. I'm not saying they're connected, and I'm not saying they're not, but this is as direct as YouTube will allow me to be. Links in the description below. Now let's find out what owners are learning about their Navigators after living with them for a little while, and these are the kinds of things that most reviewers don't discover, and you'll definitely not find them in a Lincoln brochure. First, let's start with the good news. Owners with over 10,000 miles report that this is the most reliable Navigator yet, and despite identical power ratings, owners are clocking 5 seconds 0 to 60 times versus 6 in the 2024 model. Lincoln didn't advertise that improvement, owners discovered it. Now the reality check. The all touchscreen interface that looks impressive in this episode, well, owners don't really care for it all that much. Adjusting air vents now requires navigating touchscreen menus that takes 10 to 15 seconds. One owner calls it worse than texting while driving. The ride quality debate is real. One experienced owner says that this corner is better than his previous generation Navigator. Genuine chassis improvements Lincoln didn't advertise. Several other owners describe the ride as harsh, bouncy, and like a skateboard, and I'm not sure where they're getting that information because this ride is exceptionally compliant. Phone as a key works brilliantly in other brands' products, but here it's intermittent at best according to owners, even with the latest iPhones. And some owners say that if you install Waze through the Google Play Store, it disrupts native navigation and Blue Cruise functionality until you close the app. That's interesting. And these are the insights that I appreciate from owners because it tells a much different story than a week-long press loan, because it appears that Lincoln's built a vehicle that's much more reliable mechanically and a little bit annoyingly technologically advanced for some owners. And for some owners, that's progress in one direction and regression in another. And before you buy, you need to know both. My verdict, let's start with fuel consumption because I actually tracked it, and in mixed city and highway driving, about 2/3 city, 1/3 highway, I'm getting about 14 miles per gallon or 17 liters per 100 kilometers, which is not bad for me, but I'd love to hear from Navigator owners and understand what you're getting in the real world, so please drop a comment below. As for this new Navigator and its new ethos, here's what I think is going on. This SUV has seven electronic systems standing between your inputs and its responses. Advanced track with roll stability control, curve control, torque vectoring, adaptive suspension, electronic throttle mapping with what Lincoln calls drive modes, but what's really intervention calibration, even ABS, and a transmission that doesn't like to hold a gear if it thinks you're being ambitious. And they all seem to activate before you reach anything resembling an actual limit. I'm not talking about sliding, I'm talking about spirited driving, the kind of thing I do when the corners get interesting. The Navigator says, I'll take it from here, and there's nothing you can do about it. Trail brake into a corner or accelerate coming out of a corner. This Lincoln says, don't you worry about that, I'll handle it. And those systems actually don't intervene obviously. They're very subtle and very much in the background. But if you're someone like me who wants to influence the attitude of the Navigator when the corners get interesting, or even control the transmission's gear choices, Lincoln has politely told you to shop elsewhere. You can't turn these systems off, you can barely turn them down. This is a six-figure statement about luxury driving philosophy. Lincoln is saying, we will protect you from yourself whether you like it or not. The execution is flawless, the capability is real, but the driver's seat, that's just where Lincoln lets you sit while the computers are doing much of the driving. I never found the actual limits of this Navigator because Lincoln made sure that the systems get in the way before I could actually find them. My final recommendation is, well, it depends, and maybe that's the least helpful verdict, but it is the most honest. It depends on whether you want what they built or whether you want what I wish they built. But those are two very different vehicles. Lincoln built what's right for their customers. I'm just not one of them. And here's the question that matters. At this price, do you want a luxury SUV that isolates you from the driving experience or actually informs you about it? Comment with your answer below and let me know whether you've actually driven this Navigator. Otherwise, you're theorizing from the sofa. I spent a week driving this thing and I'm still not sure whether my opinion is more valid than yours. Prove me wrong. Thanks for watching. I'm Brian Max. See you again next time.